Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the February 28th Board of Education meeting. We're calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 3rd, 2023. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Cedar Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Township of Verona, and the VEA. Postings of the meeting Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public School District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public and press. Mr. Cruz, could you please call the attendance?
Mr. Walker? For the record, Mr. Walker's absent. Mrs. Frizzell?
Here.
Mrs. Farrar?
Here.
Mrs. Prisco? For the record, Mrs. Prisco is absent. Mrs. Freshy?
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Okay, so to start, we'd like to welcome Dr. Lanzo and the FM Brown peer mediators. Welcome.
Good evening. We're very excited to be here this evening. And we have lots of excited peer mediators and their families. So thank you in advance to our parents for chaperoning your students this evening. So I'm Dr. Lanzo, the principal at FM Brown School. A little background, our journey. Back in 2011, 2012, a group of teachers and myself embarked on the conflict resolution journey. So we had the opportunity to attend a training sponsored by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation at the New Jersey School Law Center. We were very excited and invigorated to bring the program back to our school. So the original group members, committee members, Mr. Wabel, Mrs. Collins, who's since retired, Mr. Hill, who was a phys ed teacher, has moved on to be athletic director in another district, Senora Hirsch, and also Mrs. Tully, our learning consultant. So we were so excited, we turnkeyed the program at FM Brown, training our staff. And then eventually it spread, very contagious, to the other elementary schools. So we launched our conflict resolution program. And shortly after, we actually presented the win-win guidelines at a board meeting. And we had students here that went through a conflict and showed us the win-win guidelines. And then later, we went back to the State Bar for training in the peer mediation process and turnkeyed it to our staff. And then later, again, very contagious, spread to the other schools. So although we're here representing FM Brown, please note that this program is in all 4 elementary schools with fidelity. All 3rd and 4th grade students have an opportunity to sign up to be a peer mediator at all 4 schools. Each school has a peer mediator coordinator. Special thanks to those coordinators. At Brown, it's shared between Mr. Wabel, grade 4, and Senora Hirsch, our Spanish teacher. At Forest, it's Mrs. Tatiana Fella. At Brookdale, it's Mrs. Carissa Walker, and the coordinator at Lanning is Mrs. Elisa Frieda. So again, we're going to present to you a skit and a peer mediation done by our 4th grade peer mediators in action. However, prior to moving to our students, I just want to point out to our board members that in your folder, there's a publication from the State Bar Foundation that we're featured in, which is very exciting. So there's lots and lots of pages here, but I would like to walk you through a couple pages. So the state bar, we had bragged about our program being successful in reducing conflicts. And they came out to see our program in action. Little did we know they were vetting us out to partner with them at their training. So we gave them some of our materials, which landed in their book with permission. So on the inside cover, you could see the thank you and the contributions, and were mentioned by name and by school. And then if you go to page 55, you could see our self-evaluation was published. And also on page 59, our post-training evaluation rubric. And also on page 105, our script, which you're going to see in action tonight. So these are building-based documents that we created, homegrown at FM Brown, and tweaked. And then we shared them with the state bar, and little did we know it would be published. So we're very excited that we're published. So with that being said, the state bar asked us for feedback regarding their trainings. And I said, the peer mediation trainings are valuable. Obviously, we're excited. We turnkey the program, but you're showing us videos of kids from the 90s. I could tell by the clothing and the attire. And also, I'd like to see real kids in action so it becomes real. So they said, well, can you loan us some kids? Can they come down and do it? So we partnered with them. So 3 times a year, and kudos to Mr. Wabel and Senora Hirsch, they train the students, and a subset of our 4th grade peer mediators have an opportunity to go down and train at the state bar. So picture we're in a PD room with 40, 50, 60 educators from all over New Jersey, administrators, counselors, and teachers at the elementary level that would like to learn about peer mediation. So prior to us getting there, they hear all about the process. What is peer mediation? It's an opportunity to speak about your concerns and resolve conflict with the assistance of a peer mediator who's neutral. And it's an opportunity to solve the conflict and brainstorm and come up with, a mutually agreed upon a solution. So then when we enter the PD late morning, they're ready to see it in action. So they've heard about it through a PowerPoint. They've read articles about it. They're looking at the manual, and then our children go in and share testimonies about how it's impacted them personally and how it's helped the school. And then they go through the scenario, and the participants watch the scenario in awe always. Then we turn the script on them. We give them a scenario, and we walk around with our clipboards, students in tow, and we give them feedback as the observer, and they must solve the conflict, and they role play disputant and peer mediator. And then we give them lots of feedback, and it looks very easy on paper until our critics go around and they realize that it's a little bit more complicated. Our students go through 6 training sessions. We do check-ins. They sign a code of conduct. They wear their official peer mediation t-shirts. All 4 schools have their own identity. So each school in Verona has their own color shirt selected by their committee. And then they have a logo which matches their school mascot. So for example, at Forest, they chose the color green, and their logo is related to their mascot at their school. So we're the FM Brown B, so you'll see a B on our shirt. So a few statistics also. I called my principal colleagues who are very, very enthusiastic about the program. They embrace the program, very excited, admin buy-in, teacher buy-in, children are excited, parents have bought into the program. So just looking at some stats, district-wide, it's open to all 3rd and 4th grade students. And we have anywhere from 50 to 60% of our current 3rd graders participating. And we have anywhere from 60 to 85% of our 4th graders. So it's a very well received program. And again, they have to sign a code of conduct, and they're not handling potential bullying issues. So our students are trained. They receive conflict resolution lessons once a week, along with conflict resolution homework. We call them homeschool connections every other week. And students are trained on distinguishing the difference between conflict and bullying. And if they're faced with bullying, they know to work with an adult. If they're faced with conflict, they have options. One option is to handle the conflict on their own using the win-win guidelines, the language and vocabulary that we've taught. Another option is approaching a peer mediator. And the peer mediator gets involved. And then, of course, adults are always involved and available for conflicts. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Senora Hirsch, who's going to talk about the benefits of peer mediation.
Thank you, Dr. Lanso. My name is Louisa Hirsch, and I'm co-coordinator of the Character Education Program at FM Brown Elementary School with Mr. Wabel. We have noticed many benefits of having a peer mediation program both at school and at home, and I would like to just touch upon briefly on some of those benefits. Conflicts are a part of everyday life, and an important skill to possess is to be able to solve your conflicts in a peaceful, respectful manner. Sometimes our students may need some assistance in going through the win-win guidelines, so that is where our trained peer mediators come into play. Peer mediation is a process where trained peer mediators go through the win-win guidelines to help students solve their conflicts. Benefits of having a peer mediation at our school include teachers having more instructional times. Oftentimes in the past, teachers would be spending the after lunch recess part dealing with conflicts, but now that they have peer mediators at lunch and recess, they know that they have someone to go to help them work through their conflicts. At our school, having a peer mediation program has allowed for arguments among students to decrease. Students are taught steps on how to resolve their conflicts in a peaceful manner. It helps students in our school have the necessary skills to solve conflicts. That is a skill that is needed for life. Other students learn from our mediators how to get along with each other better, and they are our role models. Benefits for our students have being a peer mediator include an increase in self-esteem, knowing that they are helping others solve their conflicts. Students develop leadership skills. They are role models for the students. Their communication skills increase. Especially for some of our more reserved students, it builds confidence in themselves, knowing that they are helping our school. Mediators' grades often improve because they are taught responsibility. Students are given a schedule and a location where they are expected to be at a given time. In addition, students' listening skills increase because they have to repeat back what the students have said. It allows students to be accepting and non-judgmental because peer mediators are taught not to take sides, but to repeat the conflict as each person sees it. Some of our students who are giving a testimonial tonight will touch upon how peer mediation helps them at home. Many have said that the win-win guidelines of peer mediation have helped them solve conflicts with their siblings at home. I recall a funny story many years ago where there were students who were peer mediators, and the parents said that at home, the parents were having a conflict about how to do the laundry, how to fold the laundry. And the child said, okay, let's have a peer mediation right now. and they said they were able to help solve the conflict. A few years ago, we also had feedback from students who were peer mediators and had a conflict outside of school and told us how they went to another peer mediator's house and asked for help in resolving their conflict as well. Peer mediation has definitely helped our students in many ways. We thank you, the community, for your support. I especially thank Dr. Lanso for wanting to start it at our school and also for asking me to be part of something that I feel strongly about that benefits the school community and both the students and staff. I also thank Mr. Wabel for being a wonderful co-coordinator. I enjoy working with him in this role. I also thank all the Character Education Committee members as well, and of course the students for doing a wonderful job being a peer mediator. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce some students who will be giving a testimonial. If we can have Caleb, Autumn, and Eliana come forward.
Hi, I'm Autumn. Peer mediation has helped me countless times in the past when I was younger. The win-win guidelines are very helpful when I'm peer mediating. It reminds me how to help people solve conflicts. I think peer mediation is very helpful because if I hadn't had peer mediation when I was younger, I probably would have lost a few friends to silly conflicts. I would love to spread that kindness, and I think that it is a big deal. I think that being able to solve conflicts is a very valuable skill because one conflict I had in the past was when some of my friends were fighting over who wanted to do a puzzle with me. And peer mediation helped us realize that we could all do the puzzle together. And now I want to be the kid that spreads kindness in my school because I think it could help other kids the way that it helped me when I was younger. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you. I'm Caleb, and I will be telling you my testimonial. How peer mediation has helped me. Peer mediation has helped me in the past by making people feel better. And I like that because I think that could go on, and the next person will make the next person happy, and so on and so forth. And that could be a game changer for the world. How the win-win guidelines have helped me. The win-win guidelines have helped me by making it easier for me to do what I'm supposed to do. I want my school to be a peaceful place, so that is one of the reasons I became a peer mediator. And I also want you to have a good school with peer mediation. Do I have any siblings that did peer mediation? Now, I don't have any siblings that did peer mediation. We have fights at home all the time, so I try to do some of the peer mediation strategies. How I felt when a conflict was not solved. I have never had a conflict that wasn't solved, but I would feel very sad because I would want the disputants to feel good after the conflict was solved. What would I get out of peer mediation? I think I would get a lot out of peer mediation. Like, I think I would be able to solve conflicts on my own, which would help me in life. I also think people in my life would look up to me. I hope you guys can use peer mediation in your school.
Hi, my name is Eliana. And the reason why I wanted to be a peer mediator is because when I was a kid, or at least a younger kid, I saw an older kid doing peer mediation, and I decided I wanted to do that. I wanted to do something good for my school. Peer mediation is something that has recently helped me at home. I used to, and sometimes still do, just yell and freak out, as in like a full-on tantrum. Many times it was something over something as silly as a new brand of hanger. Now, however, I do iMessages and it makes everything better. Well, not everything, just most things. Remember that hanger situation? My parents and I have started to come up with compromises, like I can keep half of my old ones and half of my new ones. I was so nervous as our training ended. I thought I was not going to be allowed to be a peer mediator, but in fact I did. And I did not think I was going to make it this far, but when I was accepted as a peer mediator, I felt amazing and overwhelmed with joy. And look at me now, up here in front of all of you grown-ups, telling you about peer mediation. For a change, peer mediation, being a peer mediator has helped me do things I never thought I would do. Peer mediation makes everybody happier, and I am proud of my school. Peer mediation has helped me a lot. During my entire second grade year, these boys, which are like the entirety of the boys who are in my year, and if and they chased me, and if there had been a peer mediator, I would have been able to address it with them on my own like an adult. Thank you.
I am blown away up here. Just
You don't have to follow them. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Abel. For those of you not familiar with me, I'm a grade 4 teacher. And I actually live both sides of conflict. I began teaching here 15 years ago prior to conflict resolution and peer mediation. And now I'm enjoying the fruits of our labor with it. So I can tell you the first 3 or 4 years, typically right after a recess, there were 3 or 4 students lined up outside many teachers' doors. And so that 15 or 20 minutes after recess time was spent solving who didn't share a jump rope, who didn't play the game fairly. And so typically that was a lot of wasted time instructionally. You know, it could have been 30, 40 minutes during the school week. And for students, that's irreplaceable. And so typically the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, we've seen a dramatic reduction in that. So it's allowed me to improve my relationship with my students. We're focusing more on learning, and the students are feeling more empowered that they're able to solve the conflicts on their own. So speaking of conflicts, you might be asking, what kind of conflicts do we see at the elementary school level? And while they're the same year to year, they're still very important to our students. And what we've noticed is name calling, joking around that kind of goes past, and some perceive it as teasing, taking property or not respecting each other's property. And so those are things, sharing. And so what we noticed is that most of our conflicts occur during that lunch and recess time. And while there's a lot of different models that we could follow as a peer mediation program, we chose a lunch recess model. So all of our peer mediators are on duty during their assigned times during lunch and recess. That's where most of our conflicts occurred. So we figured, let's put all of our resources there. We also recently expanded our peer mediators into kindergarten center time. Sharing Legos is a big deal in kindergarten. And then we also this year expanded it to our self-contained classrooms. And we're getting a lot of great feedback from our self-contained teachers about how our students are helping those other students both ways. And so that's a really, really great thing that we got some feedback from our teachers this year. So the conflict that you're about to see tonight is actually one that our peer mediators selected from one of their training sessions, and it's about an art project. And we're gonna have Zoja and Connor come on up, and you're gonna see two parts of it. You're gonna see a lose-lose first, what we call a lose-lose, where both of our students end up not getting their way or getting their resolution. And then we're going to show you how it might look like with peer mediators in there. So if you open up your folder, you'll actually find a green script. It says 2022, 2023 mediation script. And this is the script that our students will be using. So we invite you to kind of follow along. And then right behind that script are the win-win guidelines, which is like an abbreviated way, abbreviated steps that all of our students are taught to how to solve conflict. So of course, we invite you to take that and try it out at home. That little white part. So Connor and Zoja, when you guys are ready, come on up with your beautiful art project. All right, so Zoja made a great art project. You're going to see her ask Connor to kind of keep his hands to himself. And unfortunately, Connor's project, Connor can't just keep his hands to himself. The project is too awesome. Nice job helping out, Liliana.
Whoa, that's such a cool art project.
Thanks. I've been working on it for weeks. Let me go grab another color. Don't touch it.
Okay. Whoa, this is such a cool art project. I can't believe she was able to make it.
You
Uh-oh.
broke it. I told you not to break and you didn't listen to me. I told you not to touch it either and you didn't listen.
It was an
How would you
accident.
feel if I broke yours? I mean, that's what I'll do.
No, please don't stop.
All right, so if you can kind of picture yourself as a teacher, certainly art class has stopped because now we're dealing with Zoja and Connor and trying to get them back on track. Connor's a little bit nervous that his project is now going to get ruined. And of course, Zoja's looks like it's broken for a while. And this is what typically happened a lot prior to peer mediation. It was on the teacher to kind of solve this problem. And in many cases, it wasn't something that we could push towards the end of the day. Students wanted it solved right now. And so, of course, whether it's art class or my math class, teaching stops, right? And so if they couldn't solve it on their own, we added another level. And so now they're going to do the same skit, except we're going to, at the end, get our peer mediators involved. We're going to have Zoe and Desmond come on up, and they're going to help them work through this conflict. All right. Zoe and Connor, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, action.
Whoa, that's such a cool art project. I can't believe you were able to make it.
Thanks. I've been working on it for weeks. I'm going to get another color. Please don't touch it.
Well, this is such a cool art project. I wonder how she made it.
Yeah, I told you not to touch it, and you did. You didn't listen to me. How would you feel if I broke yours? And maybe that's what I'll do.
No, please stop.
Fine.
We'll invite Zoe and Desmond up.
This will be in the middle.
Let me just go.
Welcome to peer mediation. Have you cooled off?
No.
No.
You can take a deep breath, take a short walk, or count to 10.
I'll take a short walk.
I'll count to 10.
Okay. Are you cooled off?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you agree to peer mediation?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome to mediation. My name is Zoe and my partner is Desmond. We are trained mediators and will be working with you to help solve your conflict. This is how we will conduct the process. Whatever we discuss at this peer mediation will remain confidential, aka private. There are 5 rules to remember. 1, listen to each other. 2, no name calling, blaming, or interrupting. 3, be willing to solve the conflict. 4, tell the truth. And 5, be respectful. We recommend to look at each other, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Connor, using an iMessage, please state the conflict as you see it.
I feel mad when Zosha threatens to take my project because I don't want her to break it. Next time, I wish she wouldn't say she's going to break my project.
We will take notes during the mediation to keep track of the conversation, but at the end of the mediation, we will destroy the notes. So, Connor, you seem to be saying that you are mad because Zosia threatened to break your project?
Yeah.
Zosha, using an iMessage, please state the conflict as you see it.
I feel mad when Connor breaks my project, even though I told him not to touch it. Next time, I'd like him if he listened to me.
That was a good iMessage. So Zosia, I hear that you're saying that you're mad because Connor broke your project, even though you said not to touch. And next time you would wish that he would listen to you
Yes.
instead of rudely putting his hands on the project.
I agree.
Do you need to talk about the conflict anymore?
No.
No.
Connor, how are you responsible for your role in this conflict?
I'm responsible because she told me not to touch it and I touched it and I by accidentally broke it.
Connor, so you're saying that Zosha told you not to touch it, but you touched it and you accidentally broke it.
Yeah.
Zosha, how are you responsible for your role in this conflict?
I threatened Connor's project.
So Zosha, you're responsible for threatening Connor's project.
Yes.
Okay. So do you guys have any ideas on how we can resolve this so you're both happy, aka a win-win solution?
I have an idea. Why don't I help her make her project back to how it was?
Okay, Zosha, do you have any ideas?
Maybe we can make an ultimate project with our materials.
Okay, so those are both really good solutions. Which one do you think you guys are gonna choose?
I'll do Zosha's.
Okay, so you guys are gonna combine it and do an ultimate super mega project?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You could shake hands, nod heads, or thank each other.
Thank you for using peer mediation to solve your conflict today.
Just as a reminder, everything we talked about will remain confidential, which means private.
So what you just witnessed is what Dr. Lanza was talking about. The students go through 6 different trainings, and at each training, they go through a different role player skit where they have to act out a conflict, and then different teams of peer mediators take turns acting as the mediators and resolving it. So the students, before they even go to an actual mediation, have 6 or sometimes 7 different types of practices where they start to do that. What we've noticed is a lot of our students are improving in the way they take perspective. It's creating empathy within our students, right? And so that's something that's really important to note. One thing that I'm really proud of is that we've kind of flipped this script. You know, traditional mediations, the students are really relying on the adults to work through it. And whether that's at school, whether it's an administrator, a counselor, a teacher, a specialist, or at home, whether it's us parents working through the conflict with our students. What we're really trying to do is show them that the conflict is an everyday part of life and you can solve it on your own. Little job security, the most important thing for me as a teacher is when I know my students don't need me anymore. Right? And so what I've noticed with this program, what gives me great pride is when I know my students don't need me to solve a conflict. And I say, can you go out in the hallway? Have you used an iMessage? Can you go through the win-win guidelines? And when they come back to me and they say, okay, and then they come back to me and when I check in with them and they say to me, I'm okay, we're good. Like that's the best part. And I've always take pride in that when it comes to my traditional academic subjects when they don't need me for reading, writing, comprehension, math. But now we're also seeing it in their social life, right, in their personal relationships. And that's something that I think that as a school and in a community, we can certainly celebrate. Conflict is going to be an everyday part of life. It's part of us, our relationships at home. It's part of our work relationships. It's part of our relationships in school. So I think this is a really important program to continue. I just wanted to kind of go through some of the extra items in your folder. These are for you. Dr. Lanza just wanted me to point out some additional things. We did go over the green script. There's a white sheet for the win-win guidelines, and we encourage you to try to use those at home with your own children or your own spouses or significant others. Mrs. Hirsch talked about how students are starting to use these at home. And so we're starting to see their learning, go outside the classroom. There's also something I wanted to point out. Mrs. Hirsch typed up some nice benefits for you. That's also on a green sheet. So if community members come back to you and ask you, why do we have a peer mediation program? This is a great little cheat sheet for you to be able to say, this is why we have it. And look at all the benefits. It's not just for the school. It's not just for the students, but it also benefits our families at home as well. There's also a nice blue sheet which is a letter from a former director of the New Jersey State Bar Foundation. She's since moved on to work at the state level doing some of the same work. And this is from our former superintendent. And you can see they're singing our praises. They're not singing our praises, they're singing our students' praises. And so that's something I'm most proud about, is the feedback that we're getting from adults. There's also one other item that we wanted to just point out. I know some people were interested in how we train students. The white copy here that you see that's in color is an example of one of our peer mediation recruitment assemblies. And so this is how we recruit our students. We have an assembly for 3rd and 4th graders. And we just kind of gave you a little insight on, this is how we sell it to our students. We also have other things, if you're interested, on letters that we've sent home to our parents to show them this is how it helps your students at home as well. So we invite you to kind of take, at your own time, peruse that. If you certainly have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I know there's a big budget presentation though today as well. So again, we just wanted to thank you, the Board of Ed, for continuing to support our program throughout different superintendents, throughout different board members that are coming and going. You've always supported our program and our students. So we wanted to, of course, say thank you for that. We've always felt you were 100% behind us. Our parents that are here as well. I've had several generations of students. For some that are here, from our brothers and sisters have been peer mediators as well. Our parents are a great part of our program. They take part in our character education program as well. But of course, it's our students. I want to thank our students. So not only are here tonight, but all of our peer mediators. They give up their time to train during lunch and recess. And if you're a kid, lunch and recess is a big deal. And so they've sacrificed their lunch and recess time. They've also stayed after school to train. And also when they're on duty, they're giving up their lunch and recess time. But they're doing that knowing that they're making our school a better place. So to the 7 students that are here tonight, but also to all of our peer mediators, past and present, we have some in the high school already. Thank you. So, you're making our school a safer place. You're making our students feel great. So if you do have any questions, I'll pass it over to Dr. Lanzo as well. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And I do want to note that our students, parents, don't worry, that we do allow them to eat lunch. They train during lunch or recess, but we give them alternative time to eat. And I appreciate the parents picking your children up late when we do the after school trainings. So overall, again, we have 85% of our 3rd and 4th grade students participating district-wide. I shared the pioneers of the program, the original staff. Our current trainers, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, in addition to Mr. Wabel, Mrs. Hirsch, who are here tonight, the FM Brown trainers this year, Mr. Teresi, 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Starenka, 1st grade, Mrs. Tully, our learning consultant, Sarah Every, who's in this year for maternity leave for counseling position. They've all been, very helpful in training our students and attending the state bar. We did have the COVID pause for peer mediation. So prior to COVID, we had rolled out conflict resolution lessons, which did continue during COVID teaching, whether it was in person or online. But because of social distancing and hybrid and remote, our peer mediation program was put on hold. And backed by popular demand, here we are. And many students and parents were approaching the administrator saying, the kids that wear those yellow shirts, or maybe over at Lanning, the kids with the orange shirts, when are we bringing them back? And I said, we'll relaunch. And that's what we successfully did this year. Also, special thanks to our peer mediators, Caleb, if you could raise your hand, Desmond, Connor, Ileana, Autumn, Sosha, and Zoe. So let's give them another round of applause. And just in closing, peer mediation is a volunteer conflict resolution process, and it's an opportunity for student mediators to meet with disputants who could be emotionally driven at the time, and we lack perspective, and we can relate as adults. It carries into our adulthood too. And when you're emotional, sometimes it's hard to see other people's perspective. So as Mr. Wabel said, perspective taking skills, empathy, that's a big takeaway from being a peer mediator and going through the process. And it definitely provides a safe, confidential process for disputants or students stressed how they tear up the notes, and they really do. We shred them. Now, if something is shared with them that's alarming, we've talked about information that can't be confidential. That has to be brought to my attention. So we've navigated that, and they've been trained on information that they must share with an adult. But it does allow the disputants to express their feelings, to solve the conflict. And although we want to say it eradicates conflict 100%, that wouldn't be realistic. And conflict is actually a good thing because we learn and grow from it. But the goal is to eradicate. No, I'm sorry. The goal is to reduce, not eradicate, the conflicts that we have. And again, special thanks to our parents for unwavering support and also chaperoning this evening. So one more round of applause for our peer mediators. And any comments or questions? I know Mrs. Verzella's had 2 children.
Yes, I have both my children have gone through the peer mediator training and
Yeah.
process and everything, and now they are in 8th grade.
Yeah.
They've
Worn the shirts. Yeah.
They've worn the shirts. They had the hats.
Yeah.
That back when we had
Yeah.
hats. But it's a great program,
Yeah.
and they really enjoyed the program, and I think they still think back on it fondly. And it does definitely build self-esteem and the ability to advocate for yourselves and for others. And so I think it is a great program for all our children to learn from.
My son is currently a peer mediator at Forest. So we do a lot of iMessages and win-win talk in my house as well. I just want to say thank you so much. I am blown away by all of you. I'm talking to the students.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to be a peer mediator, to help other students. It takes a lot of courage to get up and talk at a Board of Ed meeting in front of a bunch of adults, and you all did incredible. And do you see our friend Reese over here? Reese is a student representative on the Board of Ed, and I feel like maybe one day one of you could also be, you're moving in the right direction, the right path to be a leader in school. So I'm very impressed. And I thank you very much for your work.
And I'm just going to echo on top. I mean, what Ms. Ferrara said, the students, so impressive to come here in front of adults that you don't know and present yourselves with such confidence is incredible. And the 3 things that stood out to me were 3 things the students said. And Autumn, when she said she wants to be that kid to spread kindness in the school. And Caleb wants his school to be a peaceful place. And Ileana, who saw an older student and wanted to model that behavior. So to me, as a board member, it says to me that it's working and the students are watching each other, helping each other, and the increase of relationships and just your place at school in the district. It's amazing to see. So thank you all.
Wait, there we go. You guys did a great job tonight. You did such a great job on your presentations. You spoke so well and you communicated incredibly well, especially in front of all of these people. So just congratulations. You did a great job on that. And I'm sure you do a great job in your peer mediations every day if this is how you perform in front of a big crowd like this. So I just wanted to say congratulations there. And to the teachers and everyone who runs it, clearly you guys are doing something right, even at the middle and high school, middle school especially. Like middle school by 7th, 8th grade, when kids start going out for peer leadership there, the peer mediation program was brought up, that previous experience was brought up. So it does carry over, and you do see kids who reflect fondly on that and who have a lot of great experiences, and it carries them on and those values carry through. So great job to you guys and great job to your teachers.
And again, one more plug. Although we have students here and parents, teachers representing FM Brown, this is a district program. And I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues, Mr. Monticelli, Principal of Forest, Mrs. Studo, Principal of Brookdale, and Mr. Freund, Principal of Lanning. They're implementing the same program with true fidelity and their unwavering support as well. So special thanks to my elementary admin colleagues. So thank you again.
Thank you for coming, Dr. Lanza.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all. Great job. I have a question for the students, whoever wants to answer. How much of your training in peer mediation carries over when you're working in the classroom with small groups, in cooperative groups. Let's see.
Well, when I peer mediate, I'm like, what do I do here again? And then I'm like, oh, in training we did this, and then I was like, okay, so I do that. Even though we barely have any conflicts, I think I've had like one conflict in my whole entire time peer mediating, which actually isn't that long. It's like 2 months, but a lot.
And that was Caleb.
Most of the time.
Desmond.
The peer mediation training carries over a lot when I'm doing peer mediation, because most of the things we learned are actually real situations that have been training for, and it's supposed to carry over like that.
Thank you, Autumn. And Zosha.
Well, if you look at the script without the training, like sometimes you wouldn't understand what you're about to say, so a lot of it carries on.
Thank you, Zosha. Eliana.
Even though I haven't had much experience with it after a failed first attempt, I think it actually helps a lot, and we use it like even in everyday life.
And Connor.
Yeah, because I agree with Zosha, because if we didn't know like what the script was or how to do it, we would probably just be sitting there and not know what to do for like the whole entire time.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Can we give those FM Brown peer mediators another round of applause? Thanks again. Thanks again for having us.
Thank you. So we are going to move on to our second presentation of budgeting. So please, if you would like to.
It's a tough act to follow.
Take your time. Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen here.
It's not quite as fun.
It's our cue to go. I'll hear about it tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Good evening. This is actually a very brief overview of the upcoming 2023-24 budget. So tonight, I'm not going to dive in. This is a big overarching overview of where we are. I know the governor actually gave his address today, so we should be receiving notices on state aid and where we at. So that's actually a big component on the budget development, and one of the missing pieces for the puzzle, which I'm going to cover tonight. So this is basically our timeline. We started in December. All of our the entire admin team, all building administrators received their budget software and the budget build, and giving them a month to input and submit their requests for the 2023-24 school year. I sat down with the superintendent in the month of January to review the proposed submissions and the requests for each school and department. Right now, during the month of March and April, we'll continue having the conversation with the Board of Ed Finance Committee. And the month of March, the next board meeting actually will be sharing more in details of what that budget is, and having the vote to adopt the preliminary budget before we do the vote in April for the final budget adoption. So our As you know, this is our mission statement in partnership with supportive community. We inspire our students to be creative, critical thinkers, compassionate global citizens through dramatic teaching, meaningful curricula, and enriching experiences. And our budget goals supports that mission. One of the things that we continue at the forefront of our budget is maintaining class sizes within our policy guidelines. For this year, we continue supporting and enriching our gen ed and special ed programming, and in addition to the arts and athletics. One big thing that I commend Mrs. DiGiuseppe on is making this 2 part-time positions in our elementary schools. And one of the goals in this new budget year is to convert those 2 part-time nurses into full-time, which will give us a full-time nurse at every elementary school. And all of this, one of the challenges is we are capped at 2%. So our tax levy continues with that 2% cap when we have all the increases, especially on one of the challenges is benefits. A lot of the increases for next year is a lot more than 2%, and the cost of operating continues to rise. So that's actually a big challenge for school boards across the state of New Jersey, is being capped at that 2%. So the projected increase for the 23-24 school year, we have the 2% tax levy. The total for that 2% tax levy is $732,828. Other revenue sources, the increase coming from that is close to $260,000. A big piece of that is close to $100,000 that's coming from the interest we're earning ever since we went out for the RFP this past summer. That's actually generating about $100,000 additional revenue from that. The other, what you see at the bottom with the excess surplus from last month's presentation on our audit, that $766,598 is an additional excess surplus that we're bringing in from the previous school year and bringing it into the budget bill for 23-24. So that 766,000 plus the 992 is giving us an additional revenue increase of 1.7 million. But the challenge is that so far our expenditure increase for 23-24 at this time is close to $1 million more than where we at. So here we see salaries going up a little over 850,000, benefits going up a little over $500,000. Special ed increases 300. This is basically programming costs 301,000. Minimal is on our CIA department, our central office, and that's exactly $8,000 increase in year-over-year cost. IT, that there is 135. The reason for that is that last year we did not include a Chromebook allocation, so that was excluded, and we want to bring that back to be able to purchase new Chromebooks. And B&G, there's a reduction of 30,000, and then all other departments and transportation, not to name the lines, but we'll talk more about that in the next presentations. A little over 800,000 coming from that. So in summary, basically the estimate, until we know where exactly we are with state aid funding, we're over by 982,540. So hopefully we, fingers crossed, we get a huge state aid increase, and it'll bring us closer to this number, and we'll be able to do all the programming additions and expansions that we want for the 23-24 school year. 78 costs and programming. So some of the variables. So one of the variables is reduction in out of district special ed placement. staffing, retirements, and resignations. Increase in the state aid is actually one of the things that we want and we look forward to. And then also increasing efficiencies in the budgeting process. So that's something that we can constantly look at on ways that we could actually reduce and actually find more efficiencies within the district. The next steps in the budgeting process, one is after today, there will be announcement from the state on what the state aid numbers are for each district. So we should be receiving that soon. And the next board meeting is when we actually will have a presentation for the board and for the public on the preliminary submission, and that is due to the county superintendent before March 20th. So right at that meeting, I'll be submitting that to the county. And the last part that's very important is basically the April 25th board meeting is the public hearing of the approval of the final budget. So these are two important dates to be part of, and I invite the public to participate and feel free to ask questions. And at this time at the board, turn it over to any of the board members to ask any questions they have so far.
Before you do that, the good news, hopefully it's good news for Verona, is the governor's budget address. He indicated that he's providing an increase of $832 million to K-12 districts for a total of 11 billion for this year. So bring it on.
Thank you.
So, well, how much state aid did we receive last year, I guess, or this school year?
So last year we received, I have it right here. One second. So which is this current school year, you're saying? And this current school year, it's broken up by, so it's broken up by three categories. So one of them is special education aid, and that was 1,984,781. Yeah. Oh no, that's special ed. And then X aid, we anticipated 600,000, but we ended up getting a little over 800. That's usually comes later in the year. It doesn't come right away. Transportation aid, 103,500. And there is one more transportation aid, and security aid is the other one, 175,630. Usually all of those stays pretty flat. The only one that does change is the special ed aid. The special ed aid is the category that always increases. Prior to that, this everything else was flat. Special ed aid was 1.6. So we got a little over 300,000, which is actually a good increase this school year.
For the technology, it was 135,000, I think.
Yes.
When we went one-to-one, when was that? How long ago was that we went one-to-one? And was that from ESSER funds? And is that
So yes, so
Right,
we
so
did
this
ESSER
this
fund.
year that just happened, right? Okay.
Yeah, so we did ESSER funds. Actually, it was the first year that I started, so it was prior to this school year, and so it was ESSER 2 that we used for that.
To bring the district one-to-one. So then that
Yes.
135,000, is that to, like, so we have the devices, is that
Yeah.
now what we're gonna use?
We do and we don't. What happened, we bought new devices for certain grade levels and then recycled the older devices down to the elementary schools, and they need to be
They're gonna be-
replaced. Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Yes.
So
So
that
it-
135 is really to like bring in the new ones,
Yeah,
and then we'll
yeah.
continue
So
that
what will
cycle.
happen is the student will receive a Chromebook in grade five and 9. And that will stay with them through, they'll keep that.
Okay.
So they'll get the same, well, they actually keep it for the summer, 4 years.
And then in In K4, are there carts? Do they also have access
Yes.
one-to-one, but just in the classroom?
Yes, they just don't take them home. So we do have enough Chromebooks to do one-to-one right now. We have about 2,200, right, Chromebooks. Some of them need replacement, and then we need some spares
Of course,
to
yeah.
cover
Okay.
breakage.
Thank you. Else have any questions?
We've also seen, and Mr. Cruz and I were talking earlier today, in 2020, 2021, the district received about $190,000 in Title I funding. The following year, we received 160,000 or give or take, and then last year, 122,000. So we're wondering if because the feds were giving out ESSER funds and COVID-related relief, whether or not that, because that's done now. So whether or not the title monies will go back up, which will give us some play with regard to, we use it for staffing, we use it for remediation. So that would be very helpful.
More questions? Okay, so now we're going to move on to our superintendent report.
Okay, I will try to be quick. It's been a long evening already. The board received both via email and hard copy tonight, a list of the recommendations for our diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we're doing. I always go to say an initiative, but I don't want to talk about it in terms of an initiative because it really shouldn't be an initiative. It should just become part of what we do. So it's our work, so our DEI work. In the final report from Grand River, Ms. Shipper made approximately 52 recommendations to address the concerns that arose during their audit of our processes. Grand River then prioritized 14 of those recommendations, and some of them, it's actually a little bit more than 14 because some of them have recommendations. From that list, the DEI team, which consists of Dr. Miller, Mr. Galbachek, Mr. Freud, and Mrs. Peter and Mr. Stevenson. And I worked on looking at what our focus was outside of the scope of Grand River and what their recommendations were. And we isolated it down to different categories. So for professional development for staff, we really agree that educational and support staff professional development should be specific to culturally responsive pedagogy, and it should focus on classroom management and SEL cultural responsiveness techniques. And this came up in the report over and over and over, and it's been witnessed by folks that have been here for a while. Techniques for pausing difficult conversations while acknowledging that these are important topics that may be discussed at another time, and developing shared words or phrases considered inappropriate or denigrating, together with a shared understanding of appropriate responses expected of teaching staff in those situations. It's really difficult when something happens in our world that upsets our students and they want to talk about it, and it's chemistry class, or it's I taught biology, it's biology class, or it's not something that necessarily lends itself to those conversations, but you don't want to tell a child they can't have voice if they're upset. So how do we teach our teachers how to address concerns when students are upset without shutting them down or making them feel like we're shutting them down? So another piece of professional development that we agreed with, and I believe it's very important, is inclusive teaching practices when working with students with disabilities, including and especially hidden or non-visible disabilities. The next large area, which I need to let you know that most of this has been done already. We began working on this right away, is under Title IX, which is the federal rule that discusses or looks at sexual harassment and gender disadvantagement. So what they suggested was that we fix our Title I coordinators website, which we did, and that's completed. We also provided Title IX training for all of our Title IX team. which was also very important. It's also required under the law. That's been completed. And that we should provide training for teachers and staff on how to recognize and appropriately respond to all reports of potential sexual and or sex gender-based harassment, which would be Title IX, and harassment, intimidation, or bullying. We have and do provide training through GCN, Global Compliance Network. That is not enough. So we will be doing training in the spring. The Title IX team will be going out and doing some training for staff with regard to both Title IX and HIB. They also made some significant recommendations around our recruiting and hiring practices. And we have begun that work already to create a consistent hiring process from school to school across the district. Each school does it very differently than other schools, and we're working on streamlining that and using some of the software. Our recruitment and application software does a lot more than we're using it for, and we're receiving some training on how to maximize that software, that solution. The next area is under student opportunities, very strongly worded in the Grand Rivers report, but also came up in the interview process when I was interviewing about pathways toward non-college bound students to provide vocational or other programs for non-traditional learners, those who may not have college plans or may not have college plans directly out of high school, or for students that would rather do a skill-based program. We don't have a lot of our students that attend Essex County Vocational Technical Schools from Verona. I think we have one student this year that goes out to Passaic County Vocational Technical School. We do have some students that are looking into it for next year. And we have a tremendous number of advanced placement courses here at the high school. And tomorrow night, you'll see when I do the State of the District presentation, just how skewed that is. And not that we want to take away from the opportunities that we're giving our students who want to take AP, but we can do it better for all students. And that could be including dual enrollment opportunities, which are open doors for students and also provide a rigorous learning opportunity. We talked as early on as during my interview process with regard to bringing in an aviation and aerospace opportunity for students, a 4-year program. That's still on the table. We have not, it's not going to start next year, but it's definitely still on the table. It's something that I have direct experience with, and it's a tremendous program, which would serve students from all levels and can really benefit kids. So we're looking at what we can do to provide more opportunities for our students and training students, getting back to the training piece, training students on Title IX, training students on HIB, training students with regard to implicit bias. We do take data on our HIB investigations, and more often than not, they are surrounding LGBTQ and race type offenses. So that training is needed, and we'll get that started. There was and this next recommendation could be any high school, any middle school across the state and country, that we should increase our instruction on healthy relationships, consent, and the relationship between consent and alcohol use. That's, again, that could be for any high school. And then to administer an annual climate study, which we are getting ready to do. We'll be administering a climate study through Rutgers University Climate Initiative for students in grades 3 through 12, staff and families. So paring down those 52 or 53 recommendations, that's what we felt like we could do and sustain, because that's the piece that we need to make sure that it's not going to be a one-off. Like, we need to be able to sustain this type of training moving forward. So that would be the recommendations that the DEI team and I make to the board regarding what we felt we witnessed as being problematic, as well as what Ms. Shipper from Grand River brought forth. So that's for the DEI recommendations. Tomorrow night is a big night for Verona. We start our first strategic planning in 6 years. Our strategic plan is about to expire at the end of this year. It will be at 7 o'clock here in this room in Verona High School Learning Commons. Mrs. Peterson, Charlene Peterson from New Jersey School Boards will be here to help moderate. We have 45 people that have signed up to join us. I'll be doing a state of the district presentation, which is extremely comprehensive. And I'm not going to go through every slide in detail because it's right now sitting somewhere around 60 slides, but we will put it up on the website so people can peruse it at their leisure. The next meeting dates are March 15th and April 15th, with the final meeting to be determined because that's when we present the strategic plan to the board. So we have to get time to put it together and work on an action plan. Thursday night, it's a packed week. Yeah.
I just have a quick question
Sure.
on tomorrow night. So are we opening that like a public
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, because
Okay.
we have 3 board members that
Okay,
want to take
that's-
part. And
okay.
Mrs. Prisco also, if she were here tomorrow night, would also want to take part. So we do need to open this as a board meeting and then go into strategic
Okay,
planning.
Great. Yeah.
We do have to have public comment. So we will have a short agenda that will just have a public comment on it. I've not been to a strategic planning where we had anyone have public comment, but we have to give the public the opportunity. And then we'll move into strategic planning. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No.
off. Just on looking at that piece, and it should only take like 5 or 10 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
Should we or can we start maybe 10 to 7 so we don't chip into our
Yeah.
actual strategic
Sure.
planning portion?
Yeah, so why don't we say 6:45 to start, and I'll put that out on Facebook. And I'll put it out through Parent Square as well. 6:45 to start the meeting, and 7 o'clock will be strategic planning. Thursday night is another evening event, Ken Shelton Part 2. Ken came and worked on February 15th and 16th with our students, staff, and community. This community evening is at 6:30 here in the Learning Commons again. For those that didn't attend or don't know anything about Mr. Shelton, he holds a master's in education. He's a 22-year educator. And from most of his work was done in California, middle school and high school. He taught both mathematics and computer technology. He is an Apple Distinguished Educator, a Google Certified Innovator, and a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. I'm sorry. He has also worked extensively at the policy level and has been named California State Superintendent of Public Instruction Education Technology Task Force, which is a huge mouthful. He regularly gives keynotes and presentations and provides consulting and advisement to various educational, technological, and equity inclusion areas. He works with anti-bias, anti-racist, multimedia literacy, cultural intelligence, visual storytelling, and instructional design. He also serves on to provide consulting support to companies, state departments of education, ministries of education, school systems like as small as Verona and as large as very large urban districts. And he serves on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board for several tech companies and nonprofits. We are very happy that he is joining us again. And tomorrow night, Thursday night, he'll be focusing on developing conversational strategies and protocols, creating brave spaces, which I love the idea of no space is actually safe, but talking about them in terms of brave spaces, and reading nonverbal cues and building community. So that's the topics he'll be working on with the community Thursday evening at 6:30. And that's my report for this evening.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just a quick clarifier. So the staff training in the spring, that'll be focused on, I'm sorry. Yeah, staff professional development, that's Title IX? or-
Title IX,
Okay,
Title
great.
IX. So we have to train all staff on what their responsibility is
Mhm.
if they should experience anything or suspect that there's a Title IX violation.
Okay. And the student training that'll be starting up like 2023, 2024 school year?
Most likely, because
Most
we
likely,
need to
gotcha.
train the counselors that are going to train the students.
Okay, yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, multi. I think, did I give you an action plan? A DEI
don't think-
action plan?
Yes, I
Oh,
got one
okay.
right here.
Yeah, that will be revised over time,
Oh,
but
yeah, of
yeah.
course. I'll flex it. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I did just want to make one comment about the VOTEC, which for the first time that I recall now, of course, COVID things have changed. The VOTEC actually came into the middle school and spoke with the eighth graders this year. And I think they did get an increased interest in what that could mean, what VOTEC means. It's, it can mean just general career, but it also can mean other avenues. So I think it was great to bring them in, and I hope that continues, because I think that there was some interest and some excitement among the students, and then hopefully that will build a little bit each year.
Yeah, I hope so. I come from Morris County, where Morris County School of Technology pulls a lot of kids, and they do great programs. And Essex County Vocational Technical Schools have a lot of really great programs as well. And it's, your taxes support the county programs. So that's why they're there. And we have an obligation to promote those.
Just one last quick question. Is this DEI action plan, is this public?
Not yet, but I can make it public. As soon as the board tells
As soon
me
as-
thumbs up.
Yep. Yeah, because, yeah, no, I was gonna say, because this was a long time in coming, and it just seems from a public perspective that it took a long time to prioritize,
Yes.
but it was a mountain to go through. So I think this is awesome. So thank you for this really
Thank you.
easy to read and follow with clear steps. So I think, when the board does give you a thumbs up,
We'll put it right up there.
definitely.
Mhm.
It's a question. I agree. I think that the way that you set it up is a work in progress, which everything always is. So I love
Yes.
how you made those simple 3 columns. I think it's nice and easy to kind of see where we are and where we're going. When we, in the activity to address the recommendation, where is it? Yeah, the inclusive teaching practices. I think we should also, I don't know, I'm speaking a little bit more maybe to elementary, but also our gifted students, because I think that we lack some programs for them, and they're a subset of
Of
kids
this,
that we can-
yes,
Yeah.
yes, no doubt.
So I think that might be something to consider in that when we're thinking about inclusivity.
Well, we are actually, that's part of our budget.
Oh.
We're not supposed to say anything.
Oh,
yet.
sorry. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I love also the, for the, is that in the student opportunities, the annual climate studies. And I think it's so important that it's for students, staff, and families.
Mhm.
And I think the way that, just when we're thinking about students, I just want to make sure that the families are always, that the families are always, made aware when any type of,
Oh, it'll be consent.
just-
Yeah,
yeah,
we
yeah.
have to get consent.
yeah, I think
Yes.
it's so important.
Yeah.
That it's on there and that.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll send home before we administer the climate survey. Rutgers puts out a really nice PDF brochure of what the questions look like, so parents can see what their students are going to be asked ahead of time.
And now we are moving on to our student report.
Okay, great. So last week, I believe valedictorian and salutatorian were announced at the high school. So congratulations to Nadine Sharabi and Nicholas Canal respectively on that. So moving into like strategic planning and stuff next week, that was put out on the morning announcements starting on Monday, this morning and tomorrow morning. And a link was posted to each grade-wide Google Classroom. That way students have access to both the information on the district website and the sign up link to the Google form. Those are easily accessible to all students within the high school right now. So yeah, looking forward to that tomorrow. Ken Shelton will meet with the students again on February 17th. It will be the same group of students that met. Nope, February 17th was the last one. Ken Shelton will meet with students on this Friday, on March 2nd. I know this. March 2nd. I'm so sorry. He will meet with them this week. I'm sorry. Yeah, so Mr. Shelton met with students on February 17th last time. This was 15 students from across all grade levels. He requested about 20-30, so roughly 50 students were randomly selected and drawn. Out of those that were asked, out of those that 50 students whose parents gave consent were randomly drawn. Out of those 50 students, about 1 in 3 or 17 students said that they'd want to participate. Most didn't give a reason, they just said that they couldn't. But the few that did say was mostly like class conflicts and stuff at the time. So starting, I was there as a board observer. I wasn't participating, but I took notes, saw what was going on. So Mr. Shelton started by going over his background and his experiences in the classroom as a student and as an educator. He then opened by sharing a poem by Shelley L. Francis about courage and leadership, and he started to prompt discussion there. It was mostly questions about leadership, bravery, belonging, and just sort of sprinkling in like the typical like survey, like how do you feel in the school environment? How can we like promote belonging in the school environment through that, and through like small partner one-on-one activities to try and like start up conversation a little bit there. And yeah, so it'll be the same group of students who are going to be at this next meeting on Friday.
Day at HBW. So
And Thursday
Thursday
at
at HBW, Friday at the high school.
Thursday at HBW, Friday at the high school, so roughly 15-ish kids. Yeah, so for Black History Month, biographical posters were hung up in the school hallways and stuff. You can see them coming in and walking down here. That'll be continued over for Women's History Month in March, as well as just announcements on history, biography on the morning announcements to celebrate. The student council will meet tomorrow to finalize plans for the school dance. Over 150 tickets were purchased, and DJ's been secured. So now it's just food and beverage decisions and decorations. That'll be next Wednesday, March 9th, I believe. Are my dates lining up for this? It'll be next Wednesday. I know that. I'm sorry, I'm all odds and ends this week. And speaking of dates, just a couple of months, but it's okay. So speaking of dates, I do have these written down. March 2nd through March 4th, the Spotlight Players will be putting on Hello Dolly, so that'll be a fun one. And congratulations to the girls basketball team on advancing to the quarterfinals this season. Their season ended recently, so. And
Tomorrow is the semifinals for the Verona Glen Ridge hockey team, right? Yay.
yeah. So that's all for me, unless there's any question.
Thanks, Reese. I have just a real quick question. Are any student, I don't know, it might go to Mrs. Giuseppe. Did any students sign up for the strategic plan?
Yes, I
Excellent.
was just peeking at that. I know Reese will be there.
Excellent.
I saw a couple of names that I believe are students. I'm just trying to see.
And Reese, thank you. Your reports are really comprehensive. And I
Yes.
appreciate that student input and what's going on down at the student level. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, I'm just seeing just you. Encourage your friends.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Thank you so much, Reese. Okay, so we're going to move on to committee reports. Jorge, will you make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 14th? Right? No.
Yeah, we heard yesterday. Oh,
This just.
okay. Yeah. I'll be very quick. Okay. There you go. We met on February 27th, which was yesterday, shockingly. And it was to go through it, talking about special ed, ESL. They're doing testing currently being conducted to see if any students will be able to be graduated, quote unquote, from the ESL program. There was a CPAC meeting held in early February. There was a lot of discussion regarding electives that are currently offered in the high school level, and how we could better support our students who need electives as well as special education and related services. There is a life skills program that is in the planning stages, and we hope to have more information about that in the next few months. There was a meeting with the preschool parents to talk about the transition from preschool to kindergarten. If anyone is out there and did not attend that meeting, you can just contact your preschool teacher. I'm sure they'll help you out. And then we talked about effective school solutions, and how that program is working. That's a therapeutic program within the high school and the middle school, meeting individually with students. And then at the elementary school level, we talked about different ways we can support students in terms of pushing in versus pulling out for services and instruction. And then on to regular general ed, although it's all real education. We talked a little bit about the Atlas curriculum modeling program. Dr. Miller is working with the curriculum directors to kind of divide and conquer the curriculum and determine who's going to have what access to work on it. And then the curriculum council is meeting, and they're starting to talk about the new curriculum that needs to be written as we get closer to the summer. We did talk about Genesis and allowing student access at the middle school level, so students can then see their grades. We kind of went back and forth about that, but I think we were discussing maybe allowing the 8th graders to have access so that they can start taking responsibility. The MAP reports should be coming out soon. They will be in backpacks for students. So if you know your student took a MAP test, you can ask them if it's in their backpack. It took my daughter 3 days to give me hers. Ken Shelton is returning this week. He will be meeting with the community, teachers, students, as well as the child study teams. We talked a little bit about Global Read Aloud, which is a great program that Diana talked to us about. And then elementary school report cards are coming. And then human resources, Dr. Miller is visiting 5 campuses in March in New Jersey. Some of them are new for the first time, so that'll be interesting to see if we get some good candidates from some of these newer campuses. Teacher observations, they're in the 3rd round for non-tenured teachers and 2nd round for tenured, so they're right on track. There was professional development given regarding balanced literacy, and they went over different rubrics that could be used across the schools, and talking about final draft writing versus final writing and positive critiquing. And then Dr. Miller also met with his mentors for new teachers, and there was new teacher academy put on by Dr. Lanzo and Mr. No, I can't remember who was Freud, I think it was. Yeah. And then the strategic planning session is tomorrow. There you go. Any questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. The global read around kind of popped out at me. I mean, that sounds pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that we're only maybe in the exploring stage of that, but like, how
Yeah.
does that work? Like, who selects the book?
So there's a woman, her name is Pernille Rip. She started, I want to say now, it may be about 15 years or close to it. And in the spring, she kind of puts things out to teachers, and she herself reads. And then I'm not sure if she makes the final vote or if teachers actually vote on them. But they're K-12 books. So they're typically elementary, lower elementary, upper elementary. And then, I'm sorry, lower middle, upper middle, and then 9 through 12. And it's really more of an initiative. So teachers from all over the world get the book. Usually just buy it yourself on Amazon. I've never had the book purchased for me. I've done it for years as a teacher myself. And it's exactly that, right? It's a read aloud, but then you're able to connect with classes globally.
And that's via internet or a chat
So,
room or
yeah.
like a website
Yeah,
that you
so
log
you,
into?
so
That's
you do,
awesome.
there's a program like Empatico. It's just one platform. And that's how you can kind of, through Empatico, connect with teachers. Usually that's more globally. And then domestically, you know, I always use Twitter. So you would follow the GRA hashtag, and then that's how you would connect with with classes. And then we would Skype, or now it would be Zoom, right? And it's really, it's an incredible experience, I think, in the classroom, because it's just a way to build community, but also expand outside of the walls of the classroom.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, because you have, you know, authors are honored to be chosen for the Global Read Aloud. So oftentimes they're very much engaged in it. So we've had Twitter chats with Linda Sue Park, or authors, and
Awesome.
it's really exciting in the classroom.
That's great.
Yeah.
You want to roll into facilities?
Yeah.
So the facilities meeting happened on February 21st, and it was just Mr. Cruz and myself. It was a relatively quick meeting. The Lanning classroom is done. There was the water damage from the pipe break. The only financial responsibility on the district's part was the $5,000 deductible through insurance. And the silver lining there is a brand new classroom from ceiling to floors, and that's all completed. We got an update on the playgrounds, that ongoing rippling problem with the flooring of the playgrounds. And our architect of record looked at it, and for us to fix it, it would be upwards of $800,000. The extended warranty that Mr. Cruz negotiated with the manufacturer / insurer expires in August. So right now, we're just kind of piecemealing and moving ahead with repairs as we need them to keep the playground safe and usable. But we have to, that's going to end in August. So the district is going to kind of pressure test them with, you know, reinstall, or we may need to go to legal action, because this is a lot of money. The community put up a lot of money to have this done, and it's been a problem since the get-go. So stay tuned for that. The HVAC is moving along. We have some grant money that we are hoping to get, and the state ESSER funds to just finish up the last of the HVAC projects. The grant funding would cover about 75% of it. And the ESSER funds, there's about 300,000 in ESSER funds that we could dedicate to that. And the other piece was, we have a couple of roof repairs. So we're in the process of getting quotes for that. There's a emergent roof problem at Lanning. So that's going to be prioritized to get that done. An ongoing, this has come up in the past and it's been tabled, is discussion around the foul ball net. It's going to cost about $90,000. And is that the best place for the district to spend money? You know, we have to really look at that. So that's going to be probably coming up in an athletics committee as well. And I don't think, did I miss anything? That is it. Neat and tidy.
One quick question. There was an issue, I want to say, with a railing at Forest, and was that addressed? Or is that being addressed? Do we know?
I'm not sure that railing, I talked to Mr. Monticelli about it. That may not be on our property. That might be, so, but yes, he has addressed it, yes.
Okay, I'll go right into finance. Jorge kind of did all of our finance meetings. There were just two other small points that I'll bring up. One, there was a request put into FEMA for reimbursement related to COVID-19, the district operations for 4 nurses. So that would be a reimbursement of $21,208, which is always nice. We did ask, most of the PPE was ESSER funds, because we did ask if there was anywhere else that we could put in for reimbursement, and Jorge did the only reimbursement that we could, which was great. Thank you. And then the other update is for the residency verification. It was found, middle school, there were 3 families, in high school, there were 10 families. So we're currently working on address verification. Families will have till the end of the month to provide that. And then in some instances, if they need extended time, then we'll go ahead and give that. And then I think everything else Jorge touched on. Does anyone have any questions? Public comment on agenda items? Okay. So then we'll move on to resolutions. Jorge, we make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 14th.
Sure. So do we have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
I'll
was
motion.
I was taking notes. Yeah, second. Sorry. I zoned.
Motion to approve resolution number. let me see.
You need to
No, you
do
need-
roll
um,
call
Oh,
on resolution 1.
No,
Yeah. Mr. Walker, for the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Ms. Brazella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara, Mrs. Prisco is absent for the record, and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passed.
all right, so now I'm on to the motion, resolution 1. So I need a motion to approve first one. It's resolution 1 through 1.5.
So moved.
I need a second. Okay. Any discussion?
Nay.
Okay. Mr. Cruz, need to do a roll call?
For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Okay. And moving on to education. I need a motion. Yeah, to approve 1 through 6.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Walker is absent for the record. Mrs. Brazella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy,
Yes.
and for the record as well, Ms. Prisco is absent. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to special education. I need a motion to approve numbers 1 through 4.
Motion. Second. And then you have to do discussion.
Yeah,
We've been
I
missing
was just
that.
gonna say, yeah, I actually have a question. Does anyone else have a discussion or a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, I know let me see where it was. For the public ID, I know that's the Individual Disabilities Education Act. This is more just, is that the money that was paid out
which,
for number 2? Oh, that's actually under finance. Okay, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Number 2, Senate, do you have a question on Senate?
No,
Okay,
it was
so
in
it's not-
finance.
Okay. It's okay.
I'm in the wrong one. Okay, so then special education was 1 through 4. Any discussion?
Nope.
Mr. Walker is absent for the record. Mrs. Brazella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Ms. Prisco is absent for the record as well, and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, athletics co-curricular. I need a motion to approve resolutions 1 through 2.1.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Roll.
Mr. Walker's absent for the record again. Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco's absent for the record, and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay. Now moving on to finance. Yeah, I need a motion to approve resolution 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
On which number?
So is number 2. Yeah, is that payout for,
It's carryover, so it would be from, is it from 22, 21, 22?
Correct.
Over into.
22, 23.
what we didn't spend coming into this
So,
budget?
so this is actually not money to what ends up happening because we have a non-public school in our district, in our geographic district. Basically, a lot of times what ends up happening is that they actually don't spend their funds. So for Verona, we spend every single IDEA dollar we get. So that's actually one thing that I make sure of is that every single reimbursable funds are spent before the deadline. The carryover, what ends up happening, the non-public school, if they don't spend it, in this case, it was a little over $30,000, it gets split between the non-public school and Verona. So we got a portion of that. We got 19,000 out of that money that they actually didn't spend, and they only got 15,000 for the carryover. And so what ends up happening again, so this school year, if they don't spend those funds, that carryover continues. So for carryover, that's the only funding that we actually receive as carryover because all the other title funds, the ESSA funds was all spent.
Right, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And before you do the roll call, I just wanted to comment on resolution number 6 for our DECA students and advisors. That's Mr. Vogel and Mr. Orr, who are down in Atlantic City competing in a DECA competition with our students. So as we speak. So thank you to them because that is it's a huge deal and it's a huge long day. My cousin's a teacher. She's down there too, and it's ongoing. So I appreciate them taking that time and good luck to our students.
Discussion. Okay, moving on to policy.
Yep, we have to approve it.
Oh,
Roll call.
sorry.
For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco is absent for the record, and Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
I need a motion to approve resolution 1.
Motion.
Discussion.
For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco is absent for the record. Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
And then we have the addendum.
Okay, so then for governance and policy, I need a motion to approve resolution 1.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Rosella, Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
and Mrs. Prisco is absent for the record. Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like? to come
We
to
have the addendum resolution.
wasn't that-
Oh, with that, what? I'm sorry. It wasn't as, yeah, it wasn't as an addendum. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, is there anyone from the public? Okay. All right, the next scheduled public meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 14th, beginning with confidential session at 6 p.m. and public session at 7 p.m. in the Verona High School Learning Commons. We also have to note because we're having a public comment tomorrow. Right, okay, tomorrow at 6:45, we'll have a public session before the strategic planning meeting at 7 p.m. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second,
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at
all
8:44.
in favor?
Oh,
All in
Yes.
favor? Aye.
okay, the meeting is adjourned at 8:45.